Great. Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is the joint meeting of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus Environment and Energy Committee, and we are thrilled to be jointly meeting with the Housing and Community Development Committee of the caucus. So I'm Edith Makra. I'm Environment Director for the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, and unfortunately, Mayor Burns, who is Chairman of the Environment and Energy Committee, was called away this morning. So I'll give some introductory remarks and turn it over to Mayor Thompson, the chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee. So today we're talking about home electrification. In 2021, when we published the first climate action plan for the region, we included the strategy about building electrification. And it seemed theoretical to me at the time, so that was just in 2021, and we added the strategy that says support electric space and water heating through demonstration and education. And to be honest with you, I had no idea how we're going to get that done. But that was 5 years ago. And that same objective about home electrification has just been amplified and refined in the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan for the Greater Chicago, which CMAQ just released last week. And this is an amazing document that hopefully someone will put that in the chat if you haven't seen it. But the strategy for electrification of buildings is even more important in that plan. And it says that we must transition buildings off natural gas by requiring all electric new construction, shift most appliance sales to electric by 2035, and install more than 3.5 million heat pumps by 2050. And that's really ambitious, so we better get busy. Fortunately for us, the utilities, particularly ComEd, have been very responsive, and ComEd has created a new program to advance home electrification. Technology around electrification and expertise are also developing rapidly. And fortunately, we also have deep knowledge and leadership in housing to work with us. And I am very thrilled to welcome Katrina Thompson, who is the mayor of the village of Broadview. Not only is Mayor Thompson chair of the Caucus's Housing and Community Development Committee, her leadership is extensive beyond this role. She is a key leader with the National League of Cities and has served as chair of its Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee. The mayor has advocated for more policies that enable cities, towns, and villages of all sizes to make progress on their climate goals. Thank you, Mayor Thompson, for your leadership in this area and for joining us.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Edith. I am glad to see this combined meeting as it clearly shares a priority. Each year, we survey the Housing and Community Development Committee to understand how we can work together and make this committee useful. And each year we hear that notification of funding and available resources is the most practical and useful way we can help each other. Let's be sure this meeting is only the beginning and that each commit to promoting these resources to residents in our communities. Edith, I'll turn it back over to you to introduce our first speaker.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. So we're delighted to welcome Aaron Stash. And Aaron Stash is an expert on and a passionate advocate for home electrification. Aaron worked for United Airlines in corporate sustainability before founding his own company, the Electric Home Company. He is also the host of the Electric Home Show on YouTube. Aaron lives in Northbrook, where he currently serves on the Sustainability Commission, so he very much understands the issues of municipal sustainability, particularly as a commissioner. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Edith. Great to be here, everybody. I'm going to share my screen and see if we can figure out what I did earlier to make it work correctly. All right, let me go here to slideshow mode. And
that looks great.
Does it look great? Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you all so much. It's great to be here. I am Aaron Stash, as Edith said. I will say that I have about 2 hours worth of information that I'm going to pack into 20 to 25 minutes here. But I am happy to share with anyone on the call today. I have my email address and my phone number on here. Please reach out at any time for more information. I have given this presentation to a number of municipalities, and I'm happy to share with your groups as well. As Edith said, I am the founder and CEO of the Electric Home Company. I have a show on YouTube, the Electric Home Show, if you want to go deep down the rabbit hole of home electrification. That features homes throughout the state of Illinois, both new homes, passive homes, as well as 100-year-old homes, both in the Chicagoland area, Champaign-Urbana, as well, that have been electrified and decarbonized in some way. I am also a real estate broker with Exit Strategy Realty, so I can look at it from a couple different angles. I'm a member of the Illinois Green Alliance. I'm a Rewiring America electrification coach, member of the Northbrook Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I am a certified professional with the Green Home Institute and a proud member of the North Shore Barrington Association of Realtors. That is me. But let's get started. This is my house in Northbrook that I'm sitting in right now. It is a LEED Platinum certified home that is all electric. It didn't start as all electric. We started with a whole lot of gas in our house, and this was our journey. So I did see some of my folks from Northbrook on the call. Great to see you both, or more if that have joined us. But Northbrook actually has an ordinance, a green building initiative, that if you get LEED certification, you can get a refund to a certain portion of your building permits. We were the second home in Northbrook to participate in this program, and we were certified LEED Platinum in 2014. I won't get into LEED exactly today, but happy to talk more about that later. The home was ready to go with solar panels, but we did not install panels until 2019. Behind that picture, you can see the 39 panels that we installed. It's about 10 kilowatts of energy. We got our first electric vehicle that same year. We changed out our stove, which was a gas cooktop, to an induction cooktop in 2020, as well as added an EV charger. So that was adding additional circuits. We got our second electric vehicle in 2023, so we no longer have any internal combustion cars in our home. And then last year, early in 2025, we completed our electrification when we changed out our water heater for a heat pump water heater and our clothes dryer for a heat pump dryer, and then officially had our gas meter removed. So we like to say that we broke up with the gas company and we are never, ever, ever getting back together. All right, but what does it mean to have an all-electric home? Thanks to ComEd for this eye chart. I'm not going to go through it, but there's a ton of great resources on ComEd's website. I know some of your municipalities have information here as well, but I'll boil it down essentially to these four main things: that we have traditional gas appliances in our homes, especially in Illinois today. That would be our HVAC equipment, heating and cooling, our water heater traditionally, our clothes dryer, and cooking that we're doing. Does anyone have a heat pump today? Maybe we could see some hands pop in the air, different things like that. All right, all right. All right, does anyone have an air conditioner or refrigerator on the call? I'm assuming we've got a lot more hands there, right? At least for the refrigerator side. Maybe we're still getting by without air conditioning. If you have either of those things, you have a heat pump. They are both heat pump technologies. A refrigerator is taking heat from the inside of your refrigerator and it is pumping it out of the refrigerator. So if you hold your hand down to the ground by your refrigerator, it will be warm because it's pumping that heat from inside to the outside. The air conditioner works the same way. It just goes in one direction. The heat pumps that I'll talk about today, whoops, sorry, go in two directions. But let me back up. Why would we want to electrify our homes in general? Why are we here today? I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen this before. If you haven't, these are the warming stripes. This is a visualization of climate change from 1850 to 2024. So as you can see, the blue is colder and the red is warmer. We're continuing to get warmer throughout this time. So I like to look at the climate impacts, the health, safety, comfort, and cost impacts of home electrification. So on the climate side, thanks to Edith for sharing this out to me, 17% of greater Chicagoland emissions come from residential energy use. A lot of emissions are also coming from commercial and industrial energy use, but specifically for the residential side, 17% of our region's emissions are coming there. And The third highest generator of emissions throughout the region is residential natural gas use. In Northbrook, where I am from and live now, I was part of the Climate Action Plan, as Edith mentioned, which we published in 2021. I'm also a member of the Northbrook Sustainability Commission. 74% of Northbrook's emissions come from the energy of our buildings. And again, this is residential, commercial, and industrial. But I think what's also interesting is that Northbrook uses more than the regional average for both electricity and natural gas. So we're using more than the average communities in our area. Second piece, health. Americans spend 90% of our times indoors, right? We're no longer an agrarian society working in fields every day. So we are inside. Most of us are inside probably right now on this call. There's a lot more working from home, or we're working in our office. We're going between our cars and our transit to get there. If I gave you this glass of water, would you drink that? Or if I gave you this orange, would you eat that? But do we know what we're breathing on a regular basis? We really want to think about the indoor air quality when it comes to electrification and knowing what we're breathing. Gas appliances, there have been many peer-reviewed studies that do show that gas appliances affect the air quality of our homes, whether that's a cook stove or a water heater or anything that's got gas in it. If it's not plumbed correctly or it's not vented correctly, you could be bringing those into your homes. It raises the risk of asthma in children and developing other illnesses. From a safety perspective, in 5 years, Illinois has seen 28 natural gas explosions of residential homes, resulting in 12 deaths. I promise this presentation gets happier and more positive after this slide, but unfortunately, this is a real risk, right? We're bringing this into our home. The picture in the background is from Melanie Lane in Northbrook in 2019. Comfort. Right? A lot of us just have a room in our home, or maybe rooms in our home that are either too cold or too hot. You know, we have a blanket on the couch because we're always cold, or we don't like to sleep in that bedroom upstairs in the summertime because it's too hot. And we just kind of deal with it. Electrification and some of the things that we can do with ductless mini splits and different units can actually improve our overall comfort, as well as the way that a heat pump works, especially in HVAC, is one of the most comfortable HVAC types of equipment that you can own. Cost. This is the kind of no-duh slide, especially right now, but fluctuating energy prices create volatility for homeowners, right? Whether that's electricity costs or gas costs, you know, the more that we can isolate or insulate ourselves or be more resilient in our homes, the more we can escape those fluctuating energy prices, especially if we have renewables on our home to produce the energy that we're using. But where should you start on this energy efficiency pyramid? So as we go higher, we look at complexity and cost of systems. But I like to start with understanding and awareness, right? That's why many of you are probably on the phone or on the session today. Let's learn more about home electrification and decarbonization. So quick shameless plug for my business, the Electric Home Company. This is really where I got my start, to help people understand how to electrify their homes, how to decarbonize their homes, and where to start. So I live in an all-electric home today, and over the past 12 years that we've lived here, I live in a science experiment. I also like to say I live in my master's degree because we helped build this home and really understand what happens on a day-to-day basis. And so the service that I provide really is education and awareness. So I do building envelope scans with a thermal camera. I look at the electrical capacity in your panel. I look at the appliance, the age of your appliances, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But all of your appliances in your home or your apartment or condo are going to fail at some point. How old are those systems, and when should you start planning ahead? I help develop an electrification and decarbonization plan. I look for the various incentives from your groups as well as the state or the utilities, and I put this into various forms for folks to digest. So I have a 3-page executive summary. I do a 30+ page really detailed report, and I also do a highlight video about these. So I know that people consume information in different ways, so we give it to them in different ways so that it's easy to understand. And then I'm here and my team is here to act as their guide to home electrification, because what I found most is it's not that people are unwilling, but the ones who do want to do it can't find the right folks throughout our region to help them. If they're calling a contractor or someone for help, 9 times out of 10, that contractor will try to talk them out of an electrification program. I've even run into folks from ComEd or Mitsubishi Electric who have called different folks looking for these services that their groups are providing, and again are being talked out of trying to install heat pump technology in our region for one reason or another. I also do HVAC load calculations. So this is a requirement, but whether it's being done or not, I'll leave that to your groups on the building side. But this is looking at all the energy required to heat and cool your home. It is very, very important, not only from a traditional HVAC perspective, but especially from a heat pump perspective, because a heat pump is a very intricate machine that wants to run at specific loads, and it wants to run as much as possible, which is kind of counterintuitive to our smart thermostats and ability to set our temperatures high or low. A heat pump works best like your car driving on the highway. When it's going at a constant speed, your car is most energy efficient. Or I like to relate it to barbecue, right? I want it to be low and slow all the time because then I'm going to get the most comfort from our house. And a heat pump, especially one with variable speeds, can regulate itself so that your house just has the most even temperatures. So back to the specific things that make our homes electric. How much emissions can we cut from our system? So this is from Rewiring America. About 25% of our home's emissions come from our HVAC, 10% our water heater, 5% our dryer, and 3% from cooking. All right, so let's talk through these specifically. So what are we electrifying? So on the HVAC side, we can replace our one-way air conditioners with a two-way heat pump. I'll say in my home, I've never had a gas furnace. I only have electric heat pump systems, very much like this photo. This actually, I see a gas meter on the side of this photo. This is not my house. But these systems work and continue to work even more efficiently down to -13 degrees or even more with new refrigerants. I do not have backup resistance heat in my house. I only have heat pump technology to heat and cool, and we've been through a number of polar vortexes. This technology works in our area. But maybe you live in a rental or you use a window air conditioner today. There are systems out there from Gradient and Medea. This is actually from the New York Housing Authority, which purchased thousands of these units to upgrade window air conditioners. They retail for about $4,000 to $5,000. I believe Lindsey from Oak Park is on to speak later. I believe they have a group buy program from one of these manufacturers right now to lower that price to homeowners to about $2,000. Apologies if I'm getting those numbers incorrect, but these systems plug right into the wall inside. They don't block your window, and they are cold climate heat pumps, so they can heat and cool the inside space of historical buildings or places that would typically have a window air conditioner. All right, what else? Water heating. And I've talked fast. Again, I'm happy to answer questions or shoot me an email or give me a call. On the water heating side, we already have electric water heaters, but how can we be more efficient? We can get a heat pump water heater. Just like an electric water heater, a heat pump water heater does not require a vent to the outside, but because it has heat pump technology, it uses 300% less energy. What do I mean by that? If I'm using an electric water heater today, for every dollar of electricity I put into my water heater, I get $1 of hot water back. If I'm using a heat pump water heater, for every dollar of electricity I spend, I get $3 to $4 of hot water back from my heat pump water heater. What's inside? Well, it's a heat pump. This is an electric water heater that's a tanked system below that, but on top sits this heat pump that is actually taking heat and energy from the room that it's in to heat the water. So there could be some drawbacks if you don't have a conditioned basement. There are systems that work similar to an HVAC split system where you can have a condenser outside and a tank inside. But if you live in a rental or you don't have a 240 amp or volt outlet, there are systems from A.O. Smith, from GE, from other manufacturers that you can plug into a wall directly. It runs on 120 volts. I like this new GE system that came out because it actually has both options. So if your gas water heater goes out, and I should say 90% of all of these appliance changes are emergency repairs. Nobody thinks about their water heater, right, until the day that it stops working, right? I wake up and I take a cold shower. I just want the fastest water heater that I can get. And if I don't have the electrical line set up for a new water heater and I've got a gas system, these can be good, especially the GE unit that can be upgraded, can be good transition devices. If you are only using 120 volts, it's going to run mostly on heat pump only mode, which is very, very efficient, but it's going to be slow to recover. All right, clothes drying. So we have, an electric clothes dryer today, yes, but we can, just like our electric water heater, we can upgrade that to a heat pump clothes dryer. With these heat pump technologies, you also don't need a vent to the outside. Every time we put a vent to the outside of our house or some sort of hole in our house, energy escapes our home. Especially when we're using this dryer, whether it's a gas or an electric dryer, if it has a vent, that air has to come from somewhere. And so those dryers are stealing energy from your home. They're heating up your clothes to dry them out, and then they're blowing that energy out the vent. And so you're losing either heating or cooling depending on what season you have. A heat pump clothes dryer is very much a giant dehumidifier. So unlike a gas or electric dryer where you're blowing hot air in there, these systems work by taking water and taking moisture out of your clothes. They're much more friendly on your fabrics and materials as well because of that. It can take longer, but I will say I do most of the laundry in our household, and I have never had a point where I thought, oh, this is just taking too long. These systems have existed for many, many years. A lot of European brands, Miele and Bosch, have had kind of small European size units, but now we're seeing larger, quote unquote, American units or American size. I have two teenagers, so I wash, at least a dozen hoodies every other day. And so that's where I was really looking for the capacity, not only in the washer, but in the dryer here as well. But again, what if you live in a rental or don't have that space, or you already have an electric dryer? There are units. The one on the right, my right in the screen, is an all-in-one unit. So it is both a washer and a dryer together. Because these are heat pumps, they do not require ventilation. They do not require vents to the outside. So this gives more flexibility for folks who are putting these into interior closets. If you're building new buildings, family units, you can reduce the amount of penetrations in these buildings. You do still need water, obviously, for the washer and a drain, but you don't need any ventilation for the dryer. Cooking, this is probably the most emotional for folks. For as long as humans have been around, we've been gathering around the fire, we've been gathering around the hearth. This is the center of our homes, and for over 100 years, we've had a marketing slogan, now we're cooking with gas, right? That was a marketing advertising slogan that the folks came up with to get more gas into our homes. We're cooking with gas. People are very passionate about their gas stoves. I know when we moved into our house, that was what we wanted to do, right? We wanted this beautiful gas stove. Oftentimes it's a showpiece, centerpiece in your house. But how could we electrify that? And why would we electrify that? If anybody's cooked on an electric stove, I don't usually get a whole lot of hands of like, who likes their electric stove, right? Now, if they have an induction, they might raise their hand. But when I look at induction, so an induction stove is electric, but it's using magnets to cook. And so you're actually heating the pot or pan itself. I won't go through the physics of it, but this is just as fast or actually faster than a gas appliance. And it's easy to clean up like an electric appliance, and there's no heat coming off of this system. So a lot of high-end kitchens and Michelin star restaurants are moving to induction because it's safer and more comfortable for their chefs. If anybody has gone to an induction cooktop, you probably are like, why didn't I do this sooner, right? I've never heard a complaint from someone who's gone to induction, but it is a very emotional experience for homeowners. But if you live in a rental or don't have that, there are induction hot plates. You can buy these from IKEA or online or different places for usually less than $100 to try it out. You do have to have a magnetic cooktop. There are also battery equipped induction stoves. So again, you don't have to necessarily upgrade your electrical to put an induction cooktop in. They are more expensive because you're paying for a 5 kilowatt battery inside of these units. I am going about 20 minutes. Edith, do I still have time? I think I have 5 minutes left.
Yep, you
Okay.
can keep
All right.
talking or we'll take questions or yep, go
All
ahead.
right. Apologies for going lightning speed. I'm trying to get through everything, but again, happy to answer questions after. I'll be on the line too, but feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call afterwards. Challenges and considerations, especially for this group. So costs, right? As we go up this pyramid, things get more expensive and more complex. I'm a big advocate of solar. I have solar, but when I talk to my clients, solar is usually one of the last things that I would recommend because if I have $30,000 to spend on solar, but I haven't done any of the things below that, solar doesn't make your house more comfortable. It doesn't keep you warm at night. It doesn't keep you cool in the summertime, and it doesn't reduce the amount of energy you use. Solar is an offset. It's fantastic offset, but if I can use those dollars to add air sealing and insulation to my house, I'm going to lower my energy bills that way. If I can update my appliances and water heating and HVAC, I can improve my indoor air quality, my comfort, my safety. And then if I have the ability to do solar, I can power all of those things, right? So different ways to look at this. I'll also say energy efficiency is not the same as electrification. We have many electric buildings in our area today that have electric baseboard heating or electric furnaces in them. I talk to a lot of folks about electric on-demand water heaters. Many of us have electric dryers or the electric stove. These all work, they're all electric, they're all decarbonized, but the amount of energy that it takes to run these systems is very, very high. I relate it to a toaster oven, right? Your toaster is very efficient. It's a one-to-one, just like your electric water heater. That doesn't mean it's cheap to run. And so with the advent of heat pump technology, that's really what we want to see in our building electrification is moving to heat pumps. Oftentimes we get a question about, well, can the grid handle it? Well, the grid is handling it today because of all these electric systems you see on the screen. These are already in our houses and our apartments and our multifamily units. If we change these systems to heat pumps, we'll actually be using less stress on the grid because of the heat pump technology. This is my own numbers in terms of not having gas. I spend in Northbrook here with Nicor at least $20 a month just for the privilege of having gas. I know it's higher in different parts of our region as well, just that customer charge. So removing gas entirely saves me $240 a year. I do spend more money for electricity in the wintertime because of that electric heat. If you think about your air conditioner, it's 90 degrees outside and I want to cool my house to 70 degrees, I'm dropping it 20 degrees. But if it's 0 degrees outside and I want to raise my temperature to 70 degrees, now I've got a much bigger difference there. I also have electric vehicles. And so my cars themselves are about 20% or 25% of my energy use as well. So I don't go to gas stations, I don't pay for gas. So when we look at our energy costs, especially on the electricity side, we've got to factor in that we no longer have costs in other places. Some challenges that you might face in your cities and municipalities, electrical services, commissioning, outdoor setbacks, the spark gap or market rate residence. On the electrical side, many of our buildings have 100 amps, 200 amps, or maybe required to go 400 amps. I'll say my 3,000 square foot home in Northbrook, we have a 200 amp service and we are all electric. So it's possible. If you're a smaller home, you can electrify on a 100 amp service. But that's something that your building and codes folks and electricians need to really determine what's right for you. I have an energy monitoring system. I highly recommend these. This is an Emporia system. It's an aftermarket device that you can put onto your electrical panel to measure the electrical needs for your home. If we know what we're measuring, we can manage it, if we know what that measurement is. Commissioning systems. This is, I think, a big challenge, especially in the programs that are free programs for folks. So the economic versus environmental balance point. And what I mean by that is if we're putting electric systems into homes, and I'll talk about an example later, we need to make sure that the homeowners understand what this is going to cost from an economic perspective, or if we're putting hybrid systems in an environmental balance point. I'm almost out of time, so I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I'll happy to circle back with folks later. Outdoor setbacks. Many of our cities, we're not able to put systems on the side of our homes or they're too loud. If I'm putting in newer heat pump systems, they are, higher efficiency, which means usually quieter decibel levels. So rethinking some of those systems about what your city allows based on new technology. Has that code been updated recently? The spark gap is really about the cost difference between gas and electricity. We live in Illinois or most of us, I think, are in Illinois, where power is relatively cheap compared to the rest of the country, right? We still would like to pay less for our power, but that's one of the biggest challenges here for electrification is that changing to electric and decarbonizing our homes doesn't necessarily mean we are going to save money for all of our constituents, right? So energy efficiency programs, yes, you will save money. Electrification and decarbonization programs, they might be paying the exact same amount that they were paying prior to that electrification because of this spark gap. And then market rate residents. So the reason that I got, that I got involved in this was because I see a lot of folks who are covering nonprofits and governments are working with low income disadvantaged communities because those are your constituents and clients, especially on the nonprofit side, which is fantastic. They are the folks who are going to get left behind if we don't support them. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, let's say 1 to 2% of folks building passive homes or high-end electric decarbonized homes, there's a huge group in the middle, about 75% of our residents, that know nothing about home electrification, why they would want to do this, why they should do this. I could probably spend an hour just on this slide alone. So this is a tale of two electric homes. On the right is my home in Northbrook, which was built in 2013. And on the left is a home in the North Kenwood neighborhood of Chicago that was built in 1885, but was electrified through various programs where the homeowner got free window upgrades, free insulation, free weatherization, free heat pump HVAC systems, a heat pump water heater, an induction stove, and a heat pump dryer. So we all have the same systems inside our home, but the homeowner that lives in North Kenwood in the month of February this year, it's not an exact match, pays about 2.5 times the electricity costs that I paid for my home in Northbrook. Now, I do have solar panels on my home, but this is February, so I got very little solar energy out of that. But there's still this big gap between what we're doing with homes that have been retrofit and weatherized and what we're doing in new build construction. I will say back to that home commissioning perspective, the home in North Kenwood, for those who know anything about heat pump HVAC and backup heating, their set point, their changeover temperature for their heat pump was set at 40 degrees. And so what that meant is that when it got lower than 40 degrees outside, the electric resistance heater, basically this backup toaster oven, would turn on instead of their 400% efficient heat pump. And so that was installer error. This product was not commissioned correctly after it was installed in this homeowner's home. Luckily, this is my brother-in-law, and so he knows me and I can diagnose that for them. But how many homes in your municipalities and cities that have gone through these programs have these problems with homeowners today, where they're getting all of these free systems and then they're seeing their bill in February and it's over $1,000 for heating? No one is going to want to change to an electrification or decarbonizing position there. We really need to look at the commissioning of our systems, making sure that we're going back into homes to educate and raise awareness to our homeowners after they have these systems installed, as well as the folks who are installing them, right? When I talk to heat pump manufacturers, 90% of the errors that heat pump manufacturers experience are installer error. we need to educate the installers and the contractors to do a better job. Um, I'm running out of time. I've spoken a lot here, but ComEd also offers an all-electric heating rate. I will say this is one of the best kept secrets in all of ComEd's territory. Um, if you have all-electric heating with a heat pump or all-electric baseboard heating, which is where this started, you can actually save over 50% on your heating bill from a distribution perspective. I saved just $40 in 1 month, and I had all electric heating for 12 years. Unfortunately, I didn't learn about this until March of 2025. So if you're not familiar with it, feel free to reach out to me. Citizens Utility Board has a great resource on their site. I have a blog on my site about it. Last thing, just other challenges, I think standardization and prioritization. So I work with a lot of builders and contractors and folks, and everywhere they go, it's slightly different. The codes that they have to follow, the different things they have to follow. I bring up the leaf blower regulation regional working group, which was a good collaborative in the North Shore area here, where folks got together because we knew that our landscape businesses were, not just in one community, right? And so how can we develop something that's standardized and really understand this so that the business community, the small business community especially, can follow along, can get support, but don't have to do different rules throughout, everywhere that they might go. All right. Thank you so much. I think I made it within time. I'm a little over. I will be on the phone or on the call later, but feel free to reach out to me at that email or phone number. Edith, thank you so much for having me today. Appreciate it.
Aaron, do you have time for 3 questions? We've got
Absolutely.
3 questions in the chat. Mayor Thompson, do you want to ask your question? Here's a good one.
Sure. My question was, how much did it cost to convert your home into all electric? And I saw on the slide that your square footage was 3,200 feet.
Yeah, so we built the house new in 2014. And at the time, we did install heat pump HVAC. So to build our home to LEED Platinum standards was about 10% more than what it would have traditionally cost for a traditional stick-built construction. I will say that we did get a ComEd electrification grant last year to finish our electrification, which included our water heater and our dryer. So that was partially paid for. We got a $5,000 grant from ComEd to finish the electrification on our home. So it's not only a new home, but it can be a home retrofit program. Now we did, and we also have a ton of insulation in our home. So, an HVAC system overall is one of the most expensive purchases that someone will make outside of their home or a car or their children's, maybe college education. But when these systems fail, and they will all fail, you're faced with that upgrade cost. Traditionally, heat pump systems do have a higher upfront cost, but the operational cost often pays for them in a few years, especially a heat pump water heater. You can pay for the heat pump water heater savings in a couple years, especially if you have an electric water heater. The same would be true of a heat pump dryer. That HVAC system, it's going to depend on your home. So unfortunately, it's not an easy kind of slam dunk number. But I think, especially with heat pump HVAC, if I buy an air conditioner, that air conditioner only runs 3 to 6 months out of the year. So the other time it's just sitting there covered or not being used. If I'm buying a heat pump that air conditions my home, that can run for 12 months out of the year. So, it should probably cost more money if I'm using it all year long versus half of the year.
So I guess I appreciate the explanation, but I
Yeah.
wanted to be real clear. Like, how much did it cost to convert your home, even though you built a new home? Like, just to
Yeah.
give us a ballpark figure, because most certainly most of us that's on this call do not live in Northbrook.
Right, right. The dryer itself, I think the dryer was about $1,000 for a heat pump dryer.
No, not
Um,
not the appliances, like the
oh,
overall cost. Like, did it cost $150,000 to convert this, or is it, like,
well, it's again because we built it from scratch 12 years ago, right? Kind of the building costs of construction. I think the building costs were, oh, let me get back to you on the building costs because I don't want to say, oh, it was this or it was that. each of the individual units, like the water heater was about $2,500 to $3,000 plus installation. The heat pump dryer was $1,000. The induction cooktop that we use was about $1,200. The HVAC system, each of the HVAC systems that we have, so we have ductless units throughout our house, a 1 ton ductless mini split system. The retail cost of the system alone is about $3,000, and then depending on installation costs, you could pay, another $3,000 to $5,000 for installation on top of that. So I
Great.
hope that's helpful.
Well, thank you. We'll
Thanks,
follow
Aaron.
up with you.
Okay.
Right. Maybe ComEd has some estimates there too. And we'll let you go, but there's one more question. So there was an estimate from Kate thinking it's $30,000 is the minimum to electrify. Would you agree with that, Aaron?
Again, I think, I had a client that had a condo in Evanston and he has one heat pump, he has one heat pump water heater, and he installed a heat pump dryer, and it was most certainly less than $30,000. He probably spent closer to $15,000 to electrify a 1,200 square foot condo in Evanston.
And one question, we'll switch to the other speaker here, but one more. We have a question from Nick Greifer. What's the extremes for when a heat pump would work, like at 5 degrees or -5? But how low can we go?
Yeah, so I think newer technologies can actually work into negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. The new A2L refrigerants can work much lower than previous units. I would say the more expensive your cold climate heat pump is, traditionally the lower temperatures it will operate at. A lot of folks install backup resistance heaters if you have a central system, which can work in conjunction with your heat pump. So, for emergency situations, I think the balance point or the HVAC kind of manual J load for the Chicago area is around 2 to 5 degrees. And so that's 90% of the time, right? And so most heat pumps will run 90% of the time, and we might have backup resistance or we might have a space heater in our home. The systems that I have are Mitsubishi brand, and the newest one runs to 100% capacity down to negative 13 degrees. It will continue operating down to negative 22 degrees, but the efficiency drops off.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank
Yep.
you so much for
Thank you, guys.
joining us today and for your expertise. Again, we'll have the slides on the Environment Committee page. So thank you very much. And I want to welcome those who from ComEd and Resource Innovations who run the incentive programs. So we'll have more opportunities for expertise. So ComEd has launched its Whole Home Electric program, which offers assistance to low-income customers to electrify their homes. And we're very pleased to welcome Danielle Monroe from ComEd, who is the Senior Energy Efficiency Program Manager at ComEd, who's going to give us some history of the program, how it came about, what it aims to accomplish. And she will be joined by Mary Johnson, the Solutions Delivery Principal at Resource Innovations, which is an implementation contractor for ComEd's Whole Home Electric program. Welcome, Danielle and Mary.
Thanks, Edith. Good morning, everyone. As Edith mentioned, Danielle Monroe. I'll be kicking us off here with some program history on how we got this program started. All right, so this slide provides some context on how electrification plays a role in Illinois legislation and therefore ComEd's energy efficiency portfolio and therefore the Whole Home Electric program, which we're here to talk about today. Starting with the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, or CEJA. Under CEJA, utilities were first allowed to offer electrification measures beginning in 2022, as long as those measures reduced total energy consumption at the premise or home. If total energy consumption was reduced, those energy reductions could be counted toward the utility's annual energy efficiency goals. CEJA also clearly defines which end uses are eligible for electrification and outlines how savings must be calculated. To manage scale and risk, the statute capped electrification-related savings claimed by utilities at 5% per year during Plan 6, which covered 2022 through 2025, and increased that cap to 10% starting in 2026. Mary will be diving into this a little bit more, but this covers a lot of the electrification measures that Aaron just covered in his deck. There was also a strong equity requirement built into the legislation. 25% of electrification savings must come from income-eligible housing. In addition, before installing an electrification measure, utilities are required to provide customers with an estimate of how the project will impact their monthly electric bill and their total annual energy expenses to avoid unintended cost burdens, which is why we model a bill impact for every project. In response to these requirements, ComEd's revised Plan 6 introduced additional commitments specifically for income-eligible customers. From 2022 through 2025, ComEd targeted an average of $10 million per year towards these efforts, serving both single-family and multifamily homes. All projects are designed so that the combined measures are expected to lower overall energy costs, not increase them, which is why we take a look at every project's bill impacts. Where practicable, the program aims to support complete electrification rather than piecemeal upgrades and integrates weatherization upgrades to ensure homes are efficient, comfortable, and affordable in the long term, and that we're doing everything we can to support the new equipment and technology being installed. So looking ahead, the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act, also known as SRGA, which passed this past fall, raises the electrification savings cap to 20% per year and requires that at least 33% of all electrification spending be directed to income-eligible households. This legislation creates new opportunities to scale the whole home electric program, such as expanding services to income-eligible homes and buildings with existing electric resistance heating systems, which we'll talk about a little later in the deck. So a lot of information packed into this slide about legislation, but I think in summary, as Edith mentioned earlier, it's a very exciting time for electrification in Illinois, and we're excited to see kind of where that continues to go throughout the next few years. And with that, I'm going to pass it along to Mary to talk through how some of this legislation translates into the details of the program.
Thanks, Danielle. Hi, everyone. Mary Johnson. I'm with Resource Innovations. We're the implementation contractor who manages Whole Home Electric. And I apologize for not being on camera. I am getting an error message. I promise I tried. So I'm here with you visually in spirit. But let's go ahead and jump into Whole Home Electric. So, and thanks, Danielle, for kind of setting the landscape here. But looking at the program itself, Whole Home Electric, it's a comprehensive offering that helps specifically income-eligible families save money by reducing overall energy consumption. We do that by replacing old and inefficient heating and cooling systems and appliances. And that goes for whether they run on gas, propane, or electricity. And we replace them with new high-performance electric systems. So this offering is for income-eligible customers. We serve both single-family and multifamily, and that also includes buildings owned and operated by public housing authorities. And so for this program, we define multifamily as buildings that are 3 units or more, and we use 80% AMI as our income guideline criteria. Single-family projects are 100% free to the customer. So there's no out-of-pocket for a single-family customer who participates in the program. Multifamily property owners may have a copay, and that goes the same for public housing authorities as well. And one thing that's really exciting for 2026, we are able to serve electric resistance heat customers under the Whole Home Electric offering. So previously, ComEd had been serving these customers through a different program, but in 2026, that service has moved under our umbrella. So we're really excited to be able to serve customers through that pathway. And Aaron did a really great job talking through benefits of electrification here, but just to kind of recap, we're really focused on saving customers money on their energy bills by eliminating or reducing natural gas or propane. Also, we're focused on reducing energy usage with new efficient equipment and upgrades. and enhancing the home's comfort and overall, all electric living promotes less air pollution and a healthier environment for everyone. So whole home electric, we're aiming to convert some or all fossil fueled mechanical equipment and appliances or if inefficient electric resistance heat in a customer's home or property, looking to switch them over to high efficiency alternatives such as heat pumps and generate overall savings for qualified customers. And so we kind of have like 3 different types of project flavors that fall under our umbrella. So first off, we have full electrification. So for these projects, we're focusing on fully switching them from gas or propane for all of their mechanicals and appliances over to high efficiency electric. And so we're screening customers for that option first. Last year, we were able to add a partial electrification pathway. So that's for customers who did not qualify for full electrification. Instead, we are able to switch out some or all of their existing gas or propane mechanicals, but there will still be some gas end uses left in their home. And I wanted to call out the footnote on this one. For a single family customer, if you qualify for full electrification, then that's the service that you will get. For multifamily, if your property qualifies for both full and partial electrification, the property owner would have the choice of which route they want to go. And then again, electric resistance heat this year, we're taking customers who already heat their homes with electric resistance heat, so things like baseboards, and switching those over to heat pumps. And in order to determine what pathway the customer would qualify for, a contractor from our approved network would conduct a comprehensive home assessment. They go through and build out a customized scope of work for any qualifying customer, and then those assessment findings determine eligibility and ultimately which option would be best suited for that customer. So types of upgrades, again, this is all determined based on the assessment findings, but we're focused on installing air source heat pumps. So we do ducted systems to replace ducted furnaces. We have ducted air source heat pumps. We also offer ductless heat pumps as well, which is a good retrofit for baseboard heat, as an example. We offer heat pump water heaters, induction stoves, and heat pump dryers. And one thing to call out too that's really important is we also scope weatherization. So we look for things like air sealing and insulation opportunities for any project that qualifies. We want to make sure that we're making the home as efficient as possible before we're sizing new equipment for them. And for customers who are receiving full electrification upgrades, we also typically, again, it's based on the home's needs, but typically we end up including a panel upgrade to make sure that their home is set up so it can support the new electric load that we're installing safely. So then we'll take a look, kind of customer journey, what to expect for somebody who participates in the program. We have different outreach partners. Thank you, MMC, for also helping us with that endeavor and getting the word out here. And so once someone learns about the program, is excited, they want to call in and or go online and get signed up. We do screening as a first step. As you probably could imagine, these are very, very technical projects. So not every home may necessarily be a good fit. So we try to do a little screening on the front end to see if a customer would likely be a good fit for participation. And so after the screening process, that's when we would set up a time for one of our contractors to come out and do a comprehensive assessment. And then the findings from that comprehensive assessment, we'll review those. And this is the step where I know Danielle was mentioning at the beginning, talking about modeling positive bill impacts. This is where we'll do that bill impact analysis. And for single family, it's obviously built based on the single family customer that lives there. For multifamily, it's based on the tenants, so individual units. And so for that reason, we're looking for building types where the mechanicals are in unit, the utility accounts are in the tenants' names, because again, we have to be able to tie those positive bill impacts back to the individual. And so assuming that all of that checks out and there's positive bill impacts, then the contractor will reach back out to the customer, walk them through the scope of work, review the different things that they'll be installing, talk through timeline, get on the same page and set expectations about what the process is going to be like, and then have the customer sign off on the approved scope of work. And again, calling out a little footnote here too for multifamily specifically. Generally, for multifamily projects, we engage with ComEd's new business team, and for some projects, there may need to be new business upgrades, so that can impact timelines and sometimes push out a multifamily project a little bit longer. We don't have that same step for single family, so the single family projects move a little more swiftly. But then after the customer signs off, the installation phase and QA/QC, so the contractor will come through, do all of the installations per the scope, and then at the end we do inspections. We have QA/QC come out. We also, talk with the customer, educate them about all their new equipment, walk them through warranties, leave them with all their materials. We leave them with some educational materials as well. And then as a last step for single family customers that would like to provide their email address to us, we have ongoing education. So we'll be sending out reminders around maintenance, kind of seasonal tips, how to, best practice tips for how to use their equipment, and then education connecting them to other ComEd resources as well. And so it's easy to get started. You can call in, the number's there for our call center, or you can enroll online. We have an enrollment portal that went live this year, which is great. And then also program contacts here for folks to reach out to for more information. Lachelle Newland is our senior program manager over customer engagement on our team. And then also Tori Woolbright is the EE outreach specialist for the Mayor's Caucus. So both great resources if you have questions. And yeah, I would just say that, if this sounds interesting or if you are aware of projects, particularly customers with electric resistance heat or multifamily, there's a lot of opportunity here through that. So happy to chat more if folks have questions or are curious about ways to get involved or connect folks. So that's it for us. So we can move to questions if there are any.
Excellent, thank you. Comprehensive. Really good to hear how it's it's the big picture. We do have a couple of questions here in the chat. Tim, you've got one related to stretch energy codes. Oh, it looks like Daniel's answered that, but go ahead, ask that.
Yeah, I was just curious. This seems to all apply to retrofit construction, improving existing homes. But there's within the IECC, there's obviously a lot of things that fit into this too. But I was wondering, in particular, if a community is adapting the stretch energy codes, are there any things that can be leveraged in the program to save costs or get credits or something?
Yeah, Tim, thanks for the question. We do have a separate program. It's our new construction program, a residential new construction program. And I think I'm not super familiar with it, to be quite honest, but I think as of last year, we have started partnering and with communities who are offering the stretch codes, to your point. So there is a separate program with a separate process and set of incentives that those customers and projects can work through. I'm looking for some information that's posted to our website, so I'll link that here in a few minutes once I find it. But also happy to connect you with the folks who manage that program on our end.
That would be great. And is it only related to stretch code? Because, when you look at the stretch codes, that's where it's really moving towards the all electric, whereas the current IECC codes are less so.
Yeah, I don't believe it's only for stretch codes. I'd have to confirm that, but we can certainly get you more information.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you, Danielle. There was a question about market rate customers or non-income eligible, and thank you for putting the link in the chat. So if you haven't seen that, please look at the link there that you can promote to any of your residents, regardless of income eligibility. And then there's a question from Nimrod, and what is the comparative lifespan of these products versus traditional appliances? And maybe for Aaron, if he's still on the call, or Danielle or Mary, if you want to tackle that one.
My understanding is that it's comparable to existing gas systems. I don't know the exact lifespan. Could follow up with that, or if Aaron knows, or Danielle, I don't know if you had anything to weigh in on there. We can do a little research and follow up for you. But
can you guys hear me?
Yes, Aaron.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Yeah, I would say, the lifespan of systems like a heat pump water heater is going to be similar to that of a traditional water heater. A lot of that is the maintenance of, are you emptying it out? What is the hard water situation versus soft water? Something like a induction cooktop, there's a lot fewer, things that could kind of mess up an induction cooktop versus a gas cooktop in terms of, again, maintenance and upkeep. So because it's all self-contained, they are also all electric devices, and many of these have pretty robust computer systems in them, but they're also tried and true systems that have been working throughout the world for many years. So whether it's good, it's really going to come down to, I think, maintenance and how the person is operating it. A well-maintained gas system is going to last longer than a poorly maintained system.
Okay, thank you. And thank you so much, Danielle and Mary. Hope you can stick around if there's any more questions. It wouldn't get through all of our speakers, but thank you so much for that presentation. And now I'd like to turn it over to our team members. So the Mayor's Caucus is a new partner this year on the Whole Home Electrification Program. And we are learning how to implement the program and learning how it works. And Ben Schnelly, who's our manager of housing initiatives at the Caucus, has put heads together with Tori Wilbright, who's energy efficiency outreach specialist, to devise strategies. So Ben and Tori will kind of talk about their approach and invite you to connect and bring this program to your constituents.
Thank you, Edith, and thank you, Danielle and Mary, for such a comprehensive and helpful introduction to the Whole Home Electric program. This morning, I'll give just a quick run through of the Mayor's Caucus's role in this program and how we can help you as municipalities. This is an exciting new program, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to be a part of it. As Edith said, it does align with the Mayor's Caucus's climate action plan for the Chicago region. And we're doing everything that we can to work with municipalities, especially our focus municipalities in this project. We're taking several different strategies to get this in the hands of municipal leaders in the coming weeks and get this in the hands of residents and property owners who would benefit. So part of that starts with gathering data to identify priority communities, which I'll touch on in the next slide, leveraging municipal communication pathways such as newsletters, social media posts, stuffing water bills. At the close of this slide deck, I'll talk about how we can help you take those next steps, how we can help you by providing material for those. We know that many municipalities have rental regulation programs for inspection that require rental properties to provide contact information to the municipality. That is a great pathway to get this information in the hands of multifamily properties. We're also utilizing the existing relationships, especially those that Tori has developed over the past year, promoting the energy efficiency programs that the Mayor's Caucus has been part of. And so I want to say thank you to Tori for all of the work that she has done so far already in 2026, as well as attending community events and resource fairs. One unique step that we're taking is collaborating with local and regional housing organizations. So in each part of the Chicago region, there are housing nonprofits that provide housing counseling, that provide home repair programs, and are already very well embedded in their counties or their communities. These are organizations that the Mayor's Caucus has been able to work with through the Homes for a Changing Region housing planning program. And we're thankful for the opportunity to work with them to help promote this to their clients, households that they work with. And there are also regional organizations such as the Illinois Housing Council that have tremendous pathways as well. So starting out this year, we are broadly promoting this resource to all 275 municipalities that make up the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus through our newsletter, to mayors and administrators through social media. But we wanted to make sure that we were putting extra effort into a subset of focus communities. To determine that, we looked at available data on the number and percentage of gas-fueled homes, as well as the median incomes of homeowners and renters in each municipality across the Chicago region. And we saw 3 buckets of communities that would be great to put extra attention and relationship building towards. So those that have the highest number of income eligible single family homeowners, those that have the highest number of rental properties serving income eligible renters, and those that have median incomes among homeowners and renters within income guidelines. We also just wanted to recognize that there are many smaller municipalities who may not be captured by those initial nets. So we are focusing also on communities that are smaller in size, but do have the highest percentage of gas fuel in income eligibility, as well as those who may not be captured by those previous buckets, but do have a rental license and registration program. So shown on this screen is a map of 72 communities that the Mayor's Caucus is putting this extra outreach towards in different clusters. And Tori will drop the link to that map in the chat here, and we're happy to answer any questions on that as well. The call to action here for the Mayor's Caucus that you can be looking towards is resources that we can provide to mention whole home electric in your municipal newsletters. So for that, feel free to reach out to either Tori or myself for flyers and language templates. We know that municipal staff, whether it's in planning and development or code inspection, often have relationships with specific multifamily rental properties, and you may have some that come to mind already based on the contents of this call. Feel free to reach out to me for any questions about eligibility for multifamily property, for email templates or flyers. And then, of course, it's always helpful to mention whole home electric on social media pages as well. So reach out to either Tori and I, and we can point you towards the correct website or any flyers or material you'd want for that as well. So that concludes my brief presentation, and Tori and I are happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Any questions for Ben, Tori, Danielle, or Mary?
Yeah, and I also will add, like Ben mentioned, we are also going to a lot of community events and resource fairs, giving presentations about the program. So if you have any events coming up that you would like us to attend, please reach out and we'd be happy to come out and talk to residents about the whole home electric program.
Do take a look at that map, which is a really rich resource, just to see which communities are going to be successful in getting this investment from ComEd to help your residents and your housing stock. So it's a great resource. No other questions? Thank you so much, Ben and Tori. Like I said, it's been really exciting to see this program develop. Tori's got great experience with doing the outreach, and Ben has a superb knowledge of the housing stock and needs in the region. So we're excited to be helpful to this program. And we learn from others. So the Mayor's Caucus, Environment Committee, and the Housing Committee as well. We have a real opportunity to learn from communities that are leading. And I have to admit that Lucy Mellen put together a program on home electrification for the Sustainability Commission in Wilmette. And I saw Aaron's presentation. So learned from you, Lucy, already, but Lucy Mellen, we're going to spotlight what Wilmette is doing. She's the sustainability coordinator in Wilmette, and you've got a great program on home electrification. And then we are also joined by Lindsey, Roland, Nieratka, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer in Oak Park. And she's going to tell us about their home electrification efforts and incentives. So welcome to both of you.
Great, thank you. So my name is Lucy Mellen. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator with the Village of Wilmette, like Edith mentioned, and I will share my screen now. There we go. So just a couple of months ago in January, we officially launched our Green Homes Incentive Program after a couple of months of development. This initially started because we completed our first comprehensive village-wide greenhouse gas inventory in 2024 for the year 2022. And what this showed us, like I'm sure many of your communities have showed you, is that the majority of our emissions come from residential and commercial energy. So while this includes both electricity and natural gas, it is a big lever that we were looking to pull. And after talking with ICLEI, who we do our greenhouse gas inventory through in their ClearPath software, they had sort of suggested that we move forward with some type of program that addresses residential and commercial either energy efficiency or electrification. And we sort of chose to do both. So you can see the blue on that chart is our residential energy, making up 45% of community-wide emissions. And then commercial energy being that green slice, making up 22%. So that's over half of our community emissions in total. We established an incentive program to sort of start to address this. Our Environmental and Energy Commission started tackling the educational piece, which is where that electrification open house that Edith mentioned had come in, and then also decided that we wanted a way to sort of move the needle with our residents. So the Green Homes Incentive Program, the goal was to incentivize sustainable home installations that reduce the community's reliance on and usage of natural gas, and then also just increase overall energy efficiency. So we broke it down into 3 groups, A, B, and C. All are eligible for either 50% of project cost or 70% of project cost. That IE on the slide denotes income eligible, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So residents that qualify for the income eligible component can have the funds cover more of their project cost and then also receive a higher incentive cost as well. So like I mentioned, Group A, 50 to 70% of project cost up to $700 or $1,000 for income eligible residents. This covers electric stoves, either electric or induction, heat pump dryers, electric panel upgrades, and level 2 EV chargers. Group B, once again, 50 to 70% of project costs, up to $2,000 or $3,000. This covers heat pumps, heat pump hot water heaters, and then weatherization. So weatherization includes things like insulation, air sealing, window replacements. That one's sort of a broad general weatherization term that we in future years may be looking to expand or change a little bit. As I'll talk about in a little bit, weatherization has been the most popular application so far. And then Group C, up to $3,000 or $4,000 for income eligible residents, covers solar panels and geothermal. And so like I mentioned, the income eligibility guidelines, we went back and forth about what the cap for this would be, what percentage of area median income. And we landed on 120% area median income due to the average income in Wilmette and sort of trying to get, the most people as possible and also make it the most applicable. You can see the household size breakdown there. And in order to verify income eligibility, applicants can submit one of the following documents, which provides income. So that may be most recent tax year W-2s, 1040s, 1099 income documents, Social Security or TANF benefits with a dated benefit or award letter, and then also an award letter or proof of participation in SNAP, LIHEAP, or our local program Housing Our Own. And this is because just participation in these programs would inherently hit our 120% AMI. And so the program creation, like I mentioned, we started accepting applications January 15th of this year. So it is relatively new. We haven't been running it for much longer than 3 months. It was approved last year, and then with the assumption that we would start it this year. The funding source is a little bit unique. It comes from our annual civic contribution via our municipal aggregation program. So we switched our municipal aggregation program from a rec model to a civic contribution model in order to get those funds and then put them back into our community. Our thought process from the board there is that we wanted to incentivize local action and bring down local emissions as opposed to supporting recs potentially in a different location. And this is a $50,000 annual civic contribution that goes directly into this program budget. So the budget is $50,000 for this year, and it will also be $50,000 for next year as well. And then it is up to change after that, whether that be for an increase or a decrease just through our regular municipal aggregation agreement. This was modeled after an existing program that the village has, which is our stormwater incentive program. And the goal of that is to encourage property owners to implement improvements that sustainably manage stormwater runoff on their private property. And the budget for that is $40,000 for this year. And it has a similar model where there's two groups. Group A is 50% of project costs up to $3,500 for those items I listed there. And then Group B is 50% of project cost up to $5,000. So the program has been running for approximately 96 days. So we are expecting this to go through the end of the year. We started promoting it when it was launched, and I'm sure, like everyone knows, making individuals aware of programs that are available to them is just a constant promotion battle, trying to put it in every piece of communication that we can. So we've either reserved or expended, reserved being people have approved applications and are currently working on active projects, is $15,700. Therefore, we have $34,300 remaining. And the project types that we've seen come through so far is an EV charger, for weatherization. Window replacements have been incredibly popular. We do have a significantly older housing stock in Wilmette, so that's a very common renovation project. And then one for a heat pump and one for a heat pump hot water heater. More information is available at wilmette.gov/GHIP. We have some more information just about how the project runs, all of our documents that residents have to fill out in order to apply, and other information. So just a quick little overview there. Happy to answer any questions either now or in the future.
Thank you, Lucy. Let's hold questions till after Lindsey speaks.
Okay.
But don't go away. Lindsey?
All right. Morning. Still morning. Good morning, everyone. Lindsey, Nieratka, Village of Oak Park. Much like many of the other speakers, we conducted a greenhouse gas emissions inventory and, saw kind of unsurprisingly that about 70% of our emissions are from our buildings. And so our climate-related plans from our Climate Ready Oak Park plan include a lot of targets and goals around emission reduction specific to our buildings, and our residential building stock is a major part of that. So we are very lucky to have a group in Oak Park called the Oak Park Climate Action Network, or OPCAN, that was kind of referenced by Aaron earlier through their group purchase of the window heat pumps. But after our Climate Ready plan was launched, one of the main goals was to create a one-stop shop for energy efficiency, and to get residential homes to start making some of these changes. Like Lucy mentioned, our building stock, our homes are 100 years old. So there's a lot of work and a lot of opportunity within those homes. So that was one of the main actions that came out of our plan and a priority of our board. And we were very lucky that our OPCAN group was able to kind of run with that and start what they called a climate coaches program. And this was a peer-to-peer network where people could reach out to the climate coaches and ask questions about electrification and efficiency and solar panels and native gardens and rain gardens and other things on their home. And what we kind of learned from about a year of this volunteer effort is that there was a real interest from our residents in making these improvements to their home, but a lot of lack of information and a lot of hesitancy of not knowing what to do next. So because of that, we decided to sort of formalize this one-stop shop, and we decided to create what we're now calling our Oak Park Energy Navigator, or OPEN program. So through OPEN, our participants have access to a help desk, which is a dedicated phone line where they can call or email and ask questions about their improvements. They can ask questions about our permitting process. They can get help with evaluating contractor bids. They have access to a home energy assessment, which includes thermal imaging, blower door test, a very comprehensive evaluation of the home to identify opportunities. Once that assessment is done, they get a home energy roadmap. This is a multi-year, multi-step process that can help identify what should be done first, second, or third, how to kind of ease into it, what potential budgets are, and to help to connect to some of the resources that are out there. And all throughout this process, they're working with a person who is their energy navigator. This is the one-to-one support that someone gets through participating in this program. So Elevate is our partner on this program, and they're the ones who are running the Energy Navigator. So for someone who wants to participate in Open, their journey starts with just a very simple, easy to fill out interest form. They will then be contacted by the Elevate navigators, their home assessment scheduled, and then they will receive their roadmap. They will get one-to-one kind of guidance as they walk through that roadmap. And then after the roadmap is in hand, they have for at least a year access to that navigator to have regular one-on-ones to help them to kind of phase in some of these projects. Like I said, evaluate bids, work through our permitting process, and connect to some of the resources that exist. And then, of course, the help desk is open to anyone who needs it. So the Energy Navigator program in Oak Park is really nestled in a larger ecosystem of programs. And one of the things that we heard was that all of these different programs that the village has, that the ComEd and NICOR have, that the state has, that they were hard to navigate, which is, of course, why we created a navigator. So this really nestles into some of our other housing programs, including our home rehab programs, our CDBG energy efficiency grants, our lead service line replacement programs, some of our stormwater related programs, and also our energy grants, our possibly soon energy loan program. And then also I added on there, and rebates. We recently launched a rebate program that would cover things like induction stoves, the window heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, and actually just got our first application for that today. So our energy grants we've had for a few years. This provides assistance for income qualified homes. We have two different tiers, up to 80% AMI and 120% AMI for energy assessments, weatherization, heat pumps, electric panel upgrades was something that we added recently because we heard that also that this was one major barrier for doing things like heat pumps, and other improvements was the need to upgrade the electrical. So we did add that as a qualifying expense under our grants. And so our open program helps to kind of draw people into these other incentives, help them identify what's going to be best for their projects and how to apply for them. The rebates are smaller amounts for the appliances like the induction stoves and the window heat pumps. And so how's it going so far? We launched on March 9th, so about 6 weeks ago, and our applications for single-family non-income qualified homes are completely full. So it's been very well received. So some of the lessons we've learned, we didn't advertise the program in terms of income eligibility because we wanted it to be open to everyone, but we had some internal touch points. We have internal goals around 40% of our resources going to vulnerable households. This program was open to multifamily properties up to 20 units, and we wanted to make sure that we reserve some spaces to get to those households as well, because we have a lot of single family households that are very accustomed to interacting with some of our housing programs, and that was sort of a newer audience that we were reaching out to. And so we have had to close applications for non-income qualified single family homes and are still actively engaging with our income qualified homes and our multifamily homes to fill in those slots. Another thing, because we had such intense interest and we really only have the capacity to do, I think, 6 to 8 assessments per month, we're having to communicate very clearly that, thank you, your application has been received, it's been accepted, but your assessment probably won't happen until September, October, later. Here are other resources if you don't want to wait. And as a part of this project too, in addition to having kind of the full navigator availability, we're also going to be doing a lot of community education, community workshops, partnering with some of our community-based organizations to talk about low cost and no cost things that can be done, education about how to read your electric bills, how to lower your utility bills, and working with landlords and other property owners to understand some of the offerings that are out there that could be taken advantage of outside of the open program. So That is it, and excited to answer any questions.
Thank you. Fabulous. Any questions for Lindsey or Lucy? Or pretty much anyone who's still with us on the call. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsey and Lucy. Can you tell me again where your funding came from for these programs?
Yeah, so like Lucy mentioned with the community choice aggregation, we do also have an aggregation that provides revenue of about $100,000 a year that goes into our sustainability fund. We have a retail plastic bag fee that goes into our sustainability fund. But right now, the funding for this project is coming out of the sustainability fund, which is kind of drawing down on some of those revenues from previous years and will likely eventually need to be funded through our general fund.
Thanks.
Yeah, currently Wilmette's comes directly from our aggregation fund. So the 50,000 that we receive just is the budget for this program. And that was sort of an easy switch as well to explain both, internally and externally, that it just entirely is getting pushed over into this fund.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Carrie, you had your hand up. Not sure if that was an accident.
Nope, I had the same question.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Efficient. Nimrod, why don't you go ahead and ask your question? Come off mute.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was just looking. Is there anybody out there who might know of similar programs that may have been put in place in lower to moderate income communities? Obviously, they sound like great programs. We'd love to see if we can do something like that here, but I know funding is going to be tight in a lot of communities to help provide these types of resources. And I don't know if there's been either nationally or at the state level any funding sources that might be able to be rolled down to more of the moderate income communities.
Let anyone try to answer that, but I would point back to ComEd program for the pretty substantial investment that is targeted for low income communities. So if either Danielle or Mary wants to answer that. It's a substantial portion. I think it's a $10 million budget. And so there's going to be a lot of assistance for low income communities.
Correct. Yeah, from ComEd's perspective, I mean that's the kind of biggest program that we have right now for low income electrification. I don't know if you're asking more in terms of like community programs, Nimrod. I'm not as familiar with any other programs similar to what Oak Park is doing right now.
Ben and Tori, was North Chicago, and Nimrod, you're North Chicago, correct?
I'm actually in Beach Park now.
We're in Beach Park. Okay.
Yep.
Don't know if that's one of the targeted communities.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I don't know if that was one of the targeted communities that we turned up in our research.
Beach Park is.
Beach Park is, correct.
Nimrod, we can follow up with you.
That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Is there anything else we can help you with? Please reach out to the team here. Thank you so much to our speakers, ending perfectly on time. So really appreciate everybody's presentation and everybody's participation and great questions. So just want to point out the next Environment and Energy Committee meeting is going to be, as usual, on the third Tuesday of the month. It'll be May 19th via Zoom. And we're really excited. We've been working with Northern Illinois University students who have been evaluating the Greenest Region Compact and have recommendations. Some of you may know we've been trying to update that forever. So we're really looking forward to their work, and they'll be doing the presentation. And Ben, do you want to tell us about the next Housing and Community Development Committee meeting?
Sure. Thank you, Edith. The next meeting of the Mayor's Caucus's Housing and Community Development Committee will be Thursday, May 21st in the morning via Zoom. The topic is still being ironed out, but it will be focused on one of the top requests from last year's survey of the committee. So stay tuned.
Excellent. Thank you. And it was great to partner with the Housing and Community Development Committee. Thank you all for being here. Have a terrific day.